This video is brought to you by Warby Parker. Order 5 pairs of glasses, try them on for 5 days with no obligation to buy. Head to warbyparker.com/brainfood to try your free home try-on today. More on them in a bit. On the scenic Thai island of Koh Sumai, tucked away in the Wat Khunaram temple, is the mummified body of one of Thailand's most famous monks, Luang Pho Daeng. Remarkably well preserved, Luang Pho Daeng's body was put on display sometime in the 1970s and is still there today, virtually unchanged from the day he passed away, with the notable exception of a giant pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses that were added later. So how does his body stay so naturally well preserved? And why is he wearing Ray-Bans? Born sometime in 1894 on Koh Sumai, Luang Pho Daeng first became ordained as a Buddhist monk in his 20s. However, he only remained a monk for a few months before he decided to abandon the pursuit to raise a family and live an otherwise normal life. That said, his brief time as a monk had a profound impact on his life and guided his actions throughout the ensuing decades. For example, during World War II, Pho Daeng, who was a financially successful businessman during his adult life, donated large amounts of money, as well as clothing and medicine, to those in need and otherwise placed high value on all life. It was around this time, in 1944, at the age of about 50 years old, that he apparently, with the support of his wife and 6 now-grown children, decided to once again become a monk. After being ordained, Luang Pho Daeng threw himself into studying Buddhist texts and became fascinated with various meditation techniques, soon becoming a master meditator, in particular of Vipassana meditation, which literally translates to seeing clearly. His skill at meditation was such that he could reportedly meditate for upwards of 15 days at a time, during which period he'd neither move nor consume food or drink. Although the man himself claims that he needed no nourishment during his marathon meditation sessions, he was frequently warned by physicians that he was causing severe harm to his body through his regular extended bouts of no fluid or food intake. As you might imagine, during these sessions, he lost a great deal of weight through muscle, fat, and fluid loss, and was often so weakened by his meditation that he needed to be nursed back to health via fluid resuscitation and the like before ultimately he would once again resume meditating. The true extent of the damage Luang Pho Daeng did to his body while meditating was largely lost on his followers thanks to the decidedly monk-like stoicism with which he was able to endure the withering effects of severe dehydration and hunger. As a result, Luang Pho Daeng became something of a celebrity amongst the residents of Koh Sumai, and many traveled to the temple in order to learn from him. In addition to his impressive meditative abilities, Pho Daeng was also known for his strict adherence to a simplistic lifestyle. On a normal day, he'd eat only one simple meal, and apparently he was always eating from the same bowl. According to the monks of Wat Khunaram, where Luang Pho Daeng served as an abbot, shortly after his 79th birthday in 1973, Luang Pho Daeng foresaw his own death and made it known that he would mummify himself, which is totally possible if excruciating and an extremely time-consuming process that, given the time of his eventual death, meant he must have started the process long before he made this announcement. In preparation for his anticipated success at this, he requested that his disciples build him an upright coffin made of glass in which his body should be put on display if he was successful in his goal of achieving self-mummification. His ultimate aim being that his remains would serve as an eternal testament to the Buddhist belief in the transience of human existence if he was successful. Unfortunately, for those of us who like the details, exactly how he prepared himself for self-mummification were never recorded by the monks of his temple. That said, one known method used by certain types of Buddhist monks was a total of a 9-year process, about 6 of which the monk would be alive for. The monks would begin by ceasing eating any food except various nuts and seeds, with some accounts stating that they were also allowed to eat fruits and berries. They would also begin a regimented program of heavy physical exercise, which they would continue throughout the first period that lasted 1,000 days. During the next 1,000 days, the monks would further restrict their diet by only eating bark and various roots, again with some accounts stating that they were also allowed to eat a limited amount of fruits and berries. Near the end of this period, they would drink a concoction made from the sap of the urushi tree. This tree's sap is mildly poisonous and is normally used as a natural lacquer. Ingesting the drink caused the person consuming it to vomit frequently, further restricting the body's ability to obtain nutrients from the sparse diet they ate. They would also rapidly lose body fat due to vomiting. As a side effect, this sap also worked as a preservative in their bodies. In the final stage of self-mummification, the monk's body would be little more than skin and bones. If the monk survived to this point, he would lock himself in a stone tomb that was just large enough for him to fit in, sitting in the lotus position, which is a position he would not move from until he died. The tomb itself contained an air tube so that the monk could live for a time after being entombed. It also contained a bell which the monk would ring on a daily basis to let those outside the tomb know that he was still alive. While in the tomb, the monk would sit in the lotus position and meditate until death. Once the monk died and thus no longer rang the bell each day, the breathing tube would be removed and the tomb sealed for the final 1,000 days of the ritual. At the end of this period, the tomb would be opened to see if the monk was successful in mummifying himself. If he was, the preserved body would be put on display in the temple. Having successfully demonstrated mastery over the physical, the priest would also then be declared a Buddha. Whether some semblance of this was what Pho Daeng did or not isn't known. Whatever the case, after his preparations were complete on an unknown date in 1973, he sat down and meditated for the final time of that particular life. When his followers discovered that he'd passed away while meditating, they hastily constructed the upright coffin he'd requested and placed his body inside to wait and see if it would decompose or not. If it did decompose, he left instructions that his remains were to be cremated. If it didn't, as mentioned, he requested they put it on display. In keeping with his final wishes, when his body failed to decompose normally, it was put on display in Wat Khunaram. Nearly 3 decades later, in 2002, his remains were still externally in remarkably good shape. This spurred researchers at the Bioanthropology Research Institute to study the corpse. In the process, among other things, they performed a radiographic analysis on it. The results? Amazingly, his organs, including his brain, are still remarkably well preserved, more or less having shrunk from dehydration, but otherwise are still there and still intact. In fact, one of the only parts of Luang Pho Daeng's body that's actually rotted away were his eyes, which sunk into his skull shortly after his death. This became something of an issue for the monks of the temple who wanted to display his corpse as per his final wishes. This is because children who visited the temple were understandably terrified of his eyeless visage rather than in awe of his self-mummification. After contemplating the issue for some time, the monks of the temple came up with the rather novel solution of simply covering his eye sockets with a pair of Ray-Bans, which would not just mask the eye sockets, but also make him look rather stylish. Luang Pho Daeng has rocked this look ever since, and as a result of both his startlingly well-preserved state and timeless fashion sense, his body has become the temple's most famous attraction. Incidentally, one other interesting thing the study by the Bioanthropology Research Institute discovered in examining the body was that at some point a gecko or geckos managed to lay eggs in the eye sockets and skull, as well as in his mouth and throat. Moving swiftly on, the monks of Wat Khunaram don't mind visitors taking pictures or even recording videos of Luang Pho Daeng's body, so long as they do so in a respectful manner, and the temple is free to the public, meaning images of this fashion-conscious mummy are plentiful for those who can't make the trip.
Speaking of stylish and not needing to make a trip, Warby Parker, who we're now going to talk a little bit about before we get into the bonus facts on some crazy things Tibetan monks can do. For those not familiar, Warby Parker is a company offering prescription glasses, contacts, and sunglasses at a fraction of the price of most outlets, in which you can get sent right to your door. As spring is here and that bright glowing orb in the sky is about to bombard us all, I had Warby Parker send me not regular glasses, but 5 pairs of sunglasses in my home try-on kit, which I'll rotate through for the rest of this read, and you can give me some feedback on which ones you think are best in the comments below. Warby Parker's free home try-on kits come with no obligation to buy, a prepaid return label right in the box, and of course, 5 pairs of glasses of your choice, which you can then have 5 days to check out before you send them back. Alternatively, if you're a contact lens kind of person, they have those too with their breathable Scout lenses, which are made from a super moist material that resists drying for lasting hydration and comfort. The trial pack includes 6 days worth of contacts for only $5, and then you get $5 off your next Warby Parker order. Back to the glasses. The glasses start at just $95, including prescription lenses which have anti-glare and anti-scratch coatings. The sunglasses also start at $95, including polarized lenses, scratch resistance, and 100% UV protection. They're also available with prescription lenses starting at just $175. To get started, head over to warbyparker.com/brainfood to order your free home try-on kit today. And let's get into those bonus facts.
Speaking of crazy things certain monks can do, some Tibetan monks can control the temperature of their skin through meditation. Specifically, they have been shown to be able to raise their skin temperature, measured from their toes and fingers, by as much as 17 degrees Fahrenheit while keeping their core temperature normal. Scientists from Harvard University, led by Herbert Benson, were first able to study these monks thanks to the Dalai Lama, who visited Harvard in 1979 and agreed to help them contact and convince the monks to allow them to be studied. What followed was a series of visits to remote monasteries in the Himalayan mountains through the 1980s. Not only did they discover the monks could raise their surface temperature while keeping their core temperature normal, they also found a group in Sikkim, India, who could lower their metabolism by 64%. For perspective on how remarkable this is, when you sleep, your metabolism drops by only 10 to 15%. The scientists also got a chance to document the monks spending a night out on a rocky ledge in the Himalayas. The monks were dressed in their simple wool robes with no extra insulation and slept on the cold rocks separated from one another. The altitude was 15,000 feet and the temperatures reached 0 degrees Fahrenheit, that's minus 18 Celsius, as they slept, apparently comfortably, through the night. With as little insulation as they were wearing and laying on the cold rocks separated from one another, this should have killed the monks, but they were all fine and the cameras didn't even catch them shivering at any point. When they woke, they walked calmly back to their monastery, not seeming to notice the cold at all, unlike the scientists and camera crew, who were all bundled up and freezing by morning. It is not known how the monks managed to do this, but magnetic resonance imaging scans of the monks' brains while they meditate have shown to, quote, marked differences in blood flow to the entire brain, Benson explains. At the same time, certain areas of the brain became more active, specifically those that control attention and autonomic functions like blood pressure and metabolism. Naturally, some have pointed out that the ability to sustain oneself in extreme low temperature and low oxygen environments by raising skin temperature and lowering metabolism drastically would be particularly useful for long space missions. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below and don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, please support this show by supporting our fantastic sponsor Warby Parker. They are linked to below. And as always, thank you for watching.